Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am Ann Thompson, the president of the Washington DC Baltimore Chapter of Women in Cable Telecommunications, and this is episode 13 of WICT Wednesdays. And today I'm happy to be talking to Christie Rossi, who is the Senior Director of Retail for the Comcast Beltway Region. And we're going to be talking about the second topic in our Keeping Our Businesses Thriving two-part series. And today we're going to be talking about COVID's shutdown, the COVID shutdown's impact to the cable regional stores. Christie leads over 300 team members, 40 plus Xfinity retail stores, and indirect partner relationships in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and parts of Delaware and West Virginia. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hey, everybody.
Yes. So back in mid-March, it really felt like the shutdown just came fast and furiously to everyone, but Comcast seemed to respond fairly rapidly. So I'm wondering, when was the actual decision made to close the retail stores, and what did that process look like?
Well, it was mid-March that we, as everybody, knew that this was all real. And then we really orchestrated not only our region leadership team, but we've got 3 divisions across the country, and then we have our national retail leadership. So we really were in sync with how we did this, which means maybe it's not split second, but it's very well thought out, and then there's a plan associated with it so we can properly care for everybody. So really mid-March, we started looking at it and seeing where were the spreads happening, specifically in the stores that had the most concerns for many reasons. So it was very much patterned after our people. So we really ended up doing a couple waves of closing. And even though as a national organization, we didn't say, okay, these stores are going to close these days, and there's, so many, it was totally region by region based on the calculation and the feeling of the employees. But we started closing, I think it was March 23rd, I want to say was the earliest. And then we went through the last closing. We kept a few open, but the last closing was April 4th. So quite a few. In fact, let's see, I think we closed a total of 38 stores during that window, and we kept 5 open.
That was my next question. Excuse me. Were there stores that were kept open, and was it like 1 in each major area, or how was that decision made?
Yes. So, like every region, we have different geography. We're part of the Northeast Division, so there's 5 regions, and Beltway has the largest geography. So you all know, being in this area, we cover all the way to Huntington, West Virginia, down to Danville. So it's not feasible necessarily to have the best convenience for customers. Unfortunately, the best convenience for customers really became digital options, as we know. So we certainly communicated that. We didn't have a store necessarily in every decent driving distance that we would have liked. But we did have the major communities. We certainly had Baltimore area, DC, and then suburban Maryland, Virginia, and near Richmond. Some of the more rural areas, we just didn't have the staff to be able to keep those open. So we did keep 5, and it was fairly well sparsed out. And those stores it's never been slow, I'll say. You might think, wow, because I really thought it was going to completely slow down. And certainly it's slower, but customers kept coming because what we very soon realized is we are essential. And I'll talk a moment about kind of that process. But it was a great learning for our employees to know, hey, we are essential and we need to be open because customers need us, because internet is king, right?
Absolutely. So once the decision was made, sort of what happened then? I'm wondering, I, having been Time Warner Cable in a previous life, I know that disaster recovery plans and responses to hurricanes and things like that was happening all the time. And those plans were very, well put in place. So was it something like that you were able to follow? Sort of that same concept, or was it totally different?
Well, I think we all know there's just no such thing as an existing pandemic plan, right? And I hope we never have to create a playbook for that. But what we did create, as I mentioned, is like, what things are we going to follow in sync with as a national retail organization, so we could clearly communicate to customers and make sure we did have playbooks for some of the things we need to do, but then locally had complete autonomy when we needed to close a store, for example. And then we needed to make sure we were communicating properly to our team members. But what was really important for us is that we had the plan of what were we going to do in the stores, and then of course how we were going to care for the employees that weren't in the stores, and how were we going to keep them going. So I'll just share part of that process. There were two things. We talked about being an essential service. So quickly as an organization, and this we did nationally, is we created something called our essential services model. We did that on March 23rd in all of our open stores. So as I mentioned, we hadn't closed a majority of them yet. So most of our stores, we created this essential services model. And we had our store leaders who were all very into this, wanting to do the right thing. We had them going to the stores to buy blue tape and yardsticks, and we had signs sent that they printed in the stores, that talked about health and safety protocols. We obviously upped our cleaning routine. We made sure with our facilities and our procurement team that we got as much sanitizer and wipes that could happen, but as everything else, it was on backlog. And then we had our teams on the Friday night, which was, I have to look at my calendar, I guess it was March 22nd, right? Oh, I had that wrong. Sorry. March 21st is when we went into essential services mode. So that Friday night before was what we called a reset. So we do resets in retail all the time when we have a different promotion for mobile. This reset we affectionately called an unset, because we really took down all of our displays. So we were no longer a sales and service organization. We were merely service and essential services at that. So we took down all of our displays so that there were less objects to touch and clean. As we always do, we had to do an inventory and do all that stuff. And then we reassessed our stores and had to move items so that we could create pathways. And we put down blue tape, and we created arrows, and we had stand here signs. We created outdoor service, curbside service, and we've gotten a lot better at that. So we really orchestrated this unset, and we did it all in the Friday night time frame, and it really was an amazing team effort because everyone got behind it. People were just thirsty, as we all were, for information. They want to know what's happening, what are our plans, and as leaders, we're always looked at as knowing what the next thing is and planning ahead. And it's a tough place to be because you didn't always know. And so that's why we quickly put on daily touch points with our leaders. And every day we talked about, here's where we are, here's what we're doing, here's the stores that are closing, here's what the customer update is. And we just consistently communicated. And for us, thank God for Microsoft Teams, because we use that constantly.
Yeah, communication was definitely the key, even in our organization amongst the board, just making sure everybody knew we were talking, what was going on, how we had to handle programs that were coming out. So I saw an article when I was doing some research for this it was out of Detroit, about a retail employee who had transitioned to taking customer care calls from his home. And so I'm wondering, how did the Beltway region help its retail employees who were not able to work remotely? Was it the same kind of strategy? Was there other cross-training involved?
Yeah, so we, the phases that we talk about, even though it seems like so long ago, but the first phase was closing stores, communicating. The next phase was deploying our work from home strategy. So as I always say, I'm very grateful. I certainly love my company, and I'm more grateful than ever to be a part of it. We did have the forethought as a company to say, okay, if we're going to close these stores, we need to look at our call queues, because those weren't slowing down either, to say, where do we need some support? And can we deploy devices to our 300 or so team members? We ended up with about 250 at home, and the rest were in stores. So of those 250, and by the way, we're just, the retail team. We also have inbound sales that have been working in a call center, and there's another 150 of them, and that's just our region. So our region alone, plus our care team. So there was easily 1,500 to 2,000 additional devices that our IT team secured, and then worked really quickly, like within a couple of days, to plan the communication. And then we worked with our teams. We are farther flung in many locations than some of our call centers. So we either mailed devices, and we know that shipping wasn't as quick as it is now. There was delays, right, in shipping. So we had a good couple of days where we were orchestrating, getting devices deployed, and then we assessed what call center queues were needed. So at the time, for us, it was billing. Then we had some folks do video repair. And then we had some folks do inbound sales. So it kind of fluctuated at the time. But what's interesting now in hindsight is, we do a lot of surveys. We do a lot of NPS surveys, and our team members, I'll share that in a moment. But the reality is we had to get them devices, make sure they knew how to set it up, did some troubleshooting, got training for them, because they don't answer phone. It's very different. We all know when you're face-to-face versus when you're on the phone. Plus the process is really different. So they never had to sign in with an aux code and, follow the process for, how long am I on the phone? What do I do for after call? All the call center logistics. So they had to learn that pretty quickly. And then right away they were on the phones. The other interesting thing is our leaders. So our leaders, of course, are used to face-to-face customer questions and frontline, but they became, virtual leader support. So they're learning at the same time, and through chats, like we're doing now, they set up leader chats with our care experts. So we created a buddy system, and we've had so much discussion with our care team, so much learning. It's, as we talk about, anybody who wanted to job shadow in another team in a call center, it was job shadowing on steroids. So it was a really interesting experience. And, I'll just fast forward that most of our team is very thankful to be back in stores. We'll talk about as they're opening. But some people were like, I kind of like this better. And so we always, talk about figuring out your career path. And if there's something different, as we figure out our jobs and opening them up, there could be other opportunities.
Excellent. And I think you mentioned a survey. I think I saw a survey or a news story about how I've forgotten the word for it now. The overall
NPS?
Yes, has increased, right? So people are saying that care for Comcast is really, the performance has really increased for this, and that makes sense if you add all these additional people who are able to answer questions. Yeah, turn on a dime.
Yeah, so we use, like many companies, the Net Promoter System to track, customer feedback. Would you recommend Comcast to your friends and family? And so definitely it did increase. What's interesting is the stores that were open, really wanted that face-to-face service. So some of them would drive pretty far actually to come talk to us if they didn't, necessarily get what they needed over the phone. But the overall reaction was good. And the employee, we also do an employee version, like as I mentioned, in the Net Promoter System. And the word we use so many words now, but pivot is one where we, pivoted to a new learning for our team. And our team was really grateful to have that opportunity, because they know a lot of people who didn't get the opportunity to keep their job, in the world, but they were very grateful.
That's great. So in terms of reopening the stores, was there anything that had to be done to prepare? I mean, I guess the ones that you did close probably had to go back and do the same thing with the tape and the,
yeah,
making sure that the same safety precautions were in place. But were there any other physical training or physical changes or training of employees that would have been needed to reopen the other stores?
Yes, absolutely. So as you mentioned, the physical training, and one of the things or the physical changes, cleaning became a really big subject, of course, and something called deep cleaning, which is even more intense. And we have a cleaning team twice a day, actually, now in our open stores. And we have had that in open stores since the pandemic started. Plus, we have our teams, after somebody uses a kiosk, they wipe it down. And I mean, there's an entire protocol. But also the other physical pieces are when we started reopening, and we started in June reopening, and we did it again in phases, not the same stores opening like X amount of days later. It was, again, based on the conditions of the community, but more importantly, the employees, and what kind of staffing we had, et cetera. So the store would open, let's say it was on June 1st, we would open on a Monday. We created an entire plan the week before. We created something called BTU instead of BAU. BTU is better than usual. So, I'm a marketing person at heart, and so we like to create a lot of fun things. And our BTU was, we're coming back better than usual. We've been home at least 2 months, if not 3 in some cases. Been tied to a phone, in the chats, haven't seen people, and we want to come back with awesome customer experience, awesome, what we call being an Xfinity ambassador, where we love our products and talk about them all the time. While we were home, most of the folks that were home, we launched Hulu on X1. We launched Peacock as well for our customers exclusively before it comes out in a couple weeks. And so there was a lot of great things too that have occurred while we were at home. So we had to reacquaint our teams. We did lots of role plays. We had interactive games. And a lot of this was orchestrated with a playbook from our headquarters and our retail team. But we just added a little bit more oomph with this BTU place because we wanted to be better than usual. We wanted to come back awesome. So we took 6 days before we opened, and we had all of the team work the same hours. So any of you know retail, it's a 7-day operation and nobody works the same schedule, but we created everybody on the same schedule. And we had our T-minus dates in our project plan. And each day was lined up with operational aspects. So getting all our phones back out, cleaning them, getting the store set up, making it even more professional, no blue tape. We actually had branded signs, and of course the mask wearing requirements, because whether a state required or not, we were requiring masks for employees and customers. We had to make sure we had PPE. Whoever talked about PPE really before this, right? But we're really proud about our PPE supplies and making sure we have them. So the physical piece, and then the BTU team and mindset readiness, to us, it was equally important. And then Monday morning, that day when we open up, some people are trepidatious. We might be nervous, but we're excited and we're ready to go. The other thing we did is put in a express outdoor opportunity for our customers, meaning we can't have as many people in the store. So we really needed to make sure we were limiting that. We have what we call a curbside commander who's outside orchestrating, telling everybody thank you for practicing social distancing. We can help you here with a quick equipment return. We can have you come inside, but we're really limiting how many people are in the store. So we really had to get that mindset going, and we took a couple of days to make sure our folks were ready. And we have a majority of our stores open now, but every week we've been doing a few, really max 5 per week, so that we can spend the time properly in the stores, welcome them with a red carpet opening and get really excited. We have an opening video, all that good stuff. So it's been fun.
Yeah, that's great. So now, post-COVID, because there will eventually be a post-COVID. So I'm wondering if there's anything that you've been thinking about wanting to keep in place once we are all back to BAU, from this period of shutdown? Is there perhaps more cross-training, or you said there might be some people who either want to move to call center full-time, but maybe there could be a rotation or something? Have you thought about any of implementing anything that we've done now after COVID?
Yeah, well, I will say, like many companies, certainly the whole remote work from home, what does that look like? Even though our team, we're in stores, we still have, my team and the senior leaders of like, what does that look like? How often should they be visiting? That layer is something we work on. And the company overall outside of retail is looking at it extremely differently. We're not talking about going back to the office. So from a work and call it a work-life balance, I think our world is different. And myself, I'm standing here in my office. I got myself a stand-up desk, and it's all right. But I do each day typically go to a store and I visit, but it's a much quicker visit. I'm always very conscientious of how many people are in the store. I take my pictures, Rob, and I post them. And we give energy back to the team. For the other pieces for retail specifically, for us, what we're going to carry through is a couple of things. One is, how do we do quick service? It's this whole outdoor quick service, but not lose the opportunity to share the goodness of being an Xfinity ambassador. So some of our technology has come up quicker, where we use a mini iPad and we can check people in, we can scan their equipment, we can even do a receipt outside. They never have to walk in the store. So some of that we are continuing. Right now we're in decent, if not hot weather, so it's a little bit different. When the winter comes, it might look differently. But the other pieces are really specific roles and responsibilities for the stores. We always did that but now we have even more concerted effort that we're paying attention to what's happening on the floor. How busy is it getting? Who's the floor general or the curbside, commander? Really paying attention to who's playing what role, and huge teamwork, because the teamwork has always been important, but now it's like safety important. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, those were all my questions. I'm going to throw it out to the participants to see if anyone else has any questions for Christie.
Hi, Adiyinka.
Hi, I don't have a question. This is one of the few times where I don't have a conflict during these salons. I'm just excited to be here. I also want to say that I've had 2 Xfinity store experiences during this whole COVID time, and they've been great. So your team's doing a great job.
Awesome. Where did you go?
Largo and Jessup. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adiyinka.
Yeah.
And I don't have a question, mine's a comment as well. I did not visit the store, but I had visited the Largo store many times previously. And so I took advantage of all the exciting online things because one was just a change to a service package. So that was easy enough to do. And the other was actually going to be returning a digital cable adapter. And so I was all set to, mask and glove up and head to Largo. And I was all excited. It's like, complete this online. And so I put it in a little package and printed my thing and took it out and mailed it, and off it went, and everything went smoothly. And they were very timely. Everything it said it would do, that you would get updates and allow 2 to 3 weeks and whatever. And I'm like, this beats going to Largo any day. Like,
yay. I'm a big proponent of what works best for the customer. Believe me, I don't want everybody to come in and just return a box if that is all they want to do. I'm constantly talking to customers saying, by the way, you could do that online, or you could drop it off at UPS, because if somebody doesn't want to be there, that just isn't an annoyance, right? So totally with you. We want to talk to the people who are okay being there. So thanks for that example, Mary.
No worries. And I always upfront, I like try to be full disclosure after we do our thing, because I want them to know, being in the industry, like I'm happy to offer great feedback. And can I do a survey? What was your name? What can I do? Because they don't know. I could be Joe Smith off the street. Right. So then when they're done and they've done a great job, I want them to know and feel good.
Well, that's awesome. I just had my team call, and we were constantly talking about NPS and surveys. So thank you.
Sure.
We're always looking for promoters, of course. And what can we do better?
So, Christie, building off of Mary's question and Anne's last question as well, and incidentally, keep those photos coming on your social media feeds. They look great. But I hope you forgive me. Let me ask you a hard question, right? Because we've just been talking about a lot of the improvements and strides that have been made in remote interaction. We know that the customer care experience is going to change dramatically because of coronavirus. It already has, and I think the companies will keep in place a lot of self-install, a lot of work from home, from call centers and things like that. I'm just wondering whether that's caused you as a company at all to rethink your retail strategy. You know, you could envision a world in which a company would say, well, we've done so well on a remote basis. Do we really need to continue to invest in a retail presence? What's your thinking on that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one certainly that was on my mind. And as I mentioned, I was actually surprised that our store traffic didn't come to a halt. And so number one, for essential, you know, we are a really needed choice to a great segment of the population. You all know, because you do this analysis all the time, but those TV traditionals versus your streamers, there you would think two opposite segments, but we still get both types of customers in the store. There's just that the person that just wants it now, wants to get it, wants to be able to pick it up. So there's that convenience. But then there's the, I just want to talk to a person. And you know, that type of person, we're going to get that too. So at the same time, we do have people that were pent up wanting mobile phones. Absolutely. We had so many people wanting to upgrade and get phones, you know, that they were waiting until we were open. I mean, the opening days, as I mentioned on Mondays, we didn't do any advertising. All we did was online change that we're open, but we said, we are not going to market because we need to get our teams comfortable before we, you know, get people in. And there were customers waiting all the time. It's like they were just sort of waiting to see when we would open up. So retail strategy wise, I'm very confident that we are continuing to thrive. Something we are doing is constantly looking at what does that look like in our geography. Do we, you know, we might change up the geographies, but it is something at Beltway we've always talked about, even pre-COVID, as to, you know, what geographies are we going to open up or maybe change where we're doing service. So that did quicken the pace, you know, of some of that. But as a company, no, we've been all in on retail. So we're going to continue that way.
Thank you.
Sure.
Excellent. Are there any other questions for Christie? Then I want to say thank you very much for joining me. This was great. It was great to hear. It was one of the questions that I always, during this whole period, I thought, because we live like 2 blocks from a store. So I'm always like, what was the process around this? So thank you so much for joining me. This is a great conversation.
Hey, great. Are you near Chinatown or?
Cleveland Park. So.
Cleveland Park is not open. I have to break the bad news to you, but you can go to Chinatown and see us anytime.
That is okay. So I will be posting, when I load the video to YouTube, I will be posting your social media handles so people can follow you and see all those great pictures of the stores, as Rob said. And just a little piece of housework for everyone. This is the last WICT Wednesday for the summer. So we will be revisiting it come fall. So Christie, thanks again. And for everyone, have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Happy 4th, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.